Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
It's Wednesday morning, and I know many of you, like me, look forward to the moment that we do talk HR with HRMAB. And so this morning, we want to take a look at the HR's role as a champion of organizational culture. Joining us as we look into this very exciting subject is Dr. Kenroy Burke, who is a leadership consultant and entrepreneur. And with him is my good friend, Sonia Layne-Gartside, who is an award-winning global consultant in strategy, leadership, and a whole lot more. Good morning, both of you.
Good morning, Pearson, and good morning,
Good to see you. Good to see your smile again, Sonia. But I want to start with you, Kenroy, because in looking at this whole subject of HR's role as a champion of organizational structure, let's first discuss and describe what organizational culture is all about.
Thank you, Pearson. Now, the OC Tanner group said this whole concept of organizational culture, sometimes you may hear persons call it company culture or corporate culture, even workplace culture. They all refer to the same thing. But the group says that it's really and truly the essence of the company that you work for. They go on to say it's the heart and soul of your organization. Those social operating systems that are taking place in the background. Sometimes you can't necessarily see them, you see the results of them. But those operations that are taking place in the background, influencing how people work, how they interact with the company, and how the company interacts with them, with the customers, with the community as general. There's a lady called Brittany Forsyth who actually says that, she believes that is the behaviors and beliefs that persons bring into the organization, but also that the organization perpetuates and causes persons then to be able to operate based on those basic little simple things.
If culture is organic, it happens as it happens with those with whom it happens, can one then put structure to that?
Okay, so interestingly, the whole concept of organizational structure, everything comes into play then. If you think of it carefully, Pearson, the culture of an organization can be formed, can be created. Leaders can determine what culture they want, what they want to see happen in the organization. That is something that you can determine that you are going to coin and you're going to work on. I believe strongly that the culture of any organization takes place first and foremost in the C-suite, where the decisions are made, where people sit, discuss issues, and come up with decisions. Yes, it can be formed. Yes, it can be structured. And I think that is one of the strengths of having a good HR department on board, to be able to help structure those elements for you.
So then, Sonia, why does HR have to play such a critical role in determining and championing that culture? Why?
Because in the organization, there are the keepers and stewards of culture. So just what Kenroy is saying, if you have good HR people, that's their role, to really ensure that what we say the culture is actually what obtains. If not, organizations may end up with a culture where we say, hey, we're inclusive, we are big on accountability, but that doesn't happen. You say it, but you don't live it. And so HR are the people that ensure that what you say your culture is, the culture that you think will ensure that you get and accomplish your goals, is what actually happens. So that's why they're so important.
It just feels as if there's so much work that HR has to do, because HR has so much administrative work that they have to complete, and yet still I have to be looking around and ensuring that the culture is one that is conducive and meets the goals of my organization. How on heaven's earth is an HR practitioner able to do so? Sonia, talk to me a little bit about the challenges and how they can overcome some of those challenges.
Well, they don't have to do it alone, and it's the priority. And so if you're in HR and you're not prioritizing the culture, then you're making more work for yourself in terms of the administration, etc. So you want to prioritize the culture. And you can do that in several ways. The first one is really get feedback from your employees and act on it. You know, employees voice concerns and their opinions to HR. And so that's an easy way of figuring out, is our culture what we say it is? Is our culture creating an environment in which people can thrive? And so you get that feedback and then you act on it. Most likely people fall into the challenge of getting the feedback, you know, the feedback systems. You get an employee engagement survey, you get a focus group, people come into your office and tell you something, but you don't act on it. So that the challenge is to act on that feedback that you get, to really go back to leaders and say, hey, the decisions you are making, this is how it impacts employees. This is how it's landing on them. And it's not creating the culture that we want. The second thing that HR people can do is to coach and train leaders, because again, they're not doing it alone. They are really there to ensure that leaders in their day-to-day activities are implementing and cultivating the type of culture that we want. And so that requires that they're providing training, because a lot of leaders, they're just given the title. And we've often fallen into this symptom where leaders think, I'm here, I have a high status, a high pay, but I don't do the actual work, which is to create the culture in which employees can thrive. And so giving them training will help create that culture. And then, of course, they have to really understand that they're change agents. HR people help their employees to adapt and be flexible in a world that's changing.
Yes.
And so they really have to be those change agents. And that means ensuring that you have the policies, the systems, the norms that help employees to, you know, really calm their anxiety when everything is changing, give them the information that they need, and ensure that they're equipped with the skills and the tools to really do the work that is called in today's world.
And you touched on it, you know, and come back to you, Kenroy. So then, I suppose, as part of that change of culture, moving towards one where the organization is successful, we have to start writing things down. We have to start documenting and putting policies in place.
Yeah. No, of course, no. Again, Sonia is very correct when she speaks to the fact that leadership has to take the must go ahead, in this endeavor. If we say we want a certain culture created, it means then that we have to be extremely intentional about the putting everything in place. Yes, policies are to be put in place. Yes, procedures, structures, and systems, all those things are indeed to be put in place. But at the end of the day, Pearson, the greatest asset that you will ever have in any organization is your people.
That's right.
And the investment, therefore, needs to be placed a whole lot more on the people in the organization. That's why, as Sonia is saying, the training is critical. Because, again, Drucker says that culture eats strategy for breakfast. You could put up all of the things in place. You could create all of those beautiful things. And then, because you haven't changed the internal human culture, the way people deal with each other, where people operate amongst themselves, how people work in teams, etc., everything just falls to the ground and you lose a whole lot of momentum. When you go into do most organizational assessments, it really and truly, yes, there are points where you will find that there are issues with procedures, etc., that are put in place. But generally, most of the challenges will point towards people who have deficits that need to be worked on in order for you to be able to reach the goals that you want. You're looking at the culture of your organization to allow you to be able to fulfill that mission and vision that you have for the entire organization.
It's a partnership between employee, employer, HR. Everyone's involved in here, but sometimes you have an external partner called a union. And so the culture can itself become rather toxic for some people because it doesn't happen as straightforward as one would want. So how do we begin? And I could hear some HR practitioners this morning thinking, this sounds like a lot of work. We've been existing so long with this toxic culture. I don't even know where to start. Sonia, what do you say to that HR practitioner this morning about where to start so that we can begin to turn that culture into something that's positive?
Well, you start with your employees. Well, start with your leader first, because you really need to ensure that you have a leader that understands that your job, you must have a seat at the table and they must listen to you. So if you are at a place where you're trying to figure out how to start, you only have an audience of one to convince right now, which is your leader. And once you get your leader on board, then you go to your employees, because they know what the problem is. The challenge is often we don't listen to the feedback and act on it. And so that's the second stage, acting on the feedback. And once you have your leader on board, then they will give you the resources to act on the feedback. And really, you understand that you don't do it alone. Unions are involved. They're representing the employees. So therefore, that's a voice that you need to listen to. And then you think win-win, not win-lose or lose-win. How do we have win-win decisions? We're here to ensure that everybody wins. And when you have that attitude, then the investment of time and work that you put in will pay off. It always does.
Some will say too, it's easier in a smaller working environment where it's just, the structure is so flat, it's easier to communicate. But when the structure is a little bit different and you have other partners who might be external to you, then perhaps it becomes a little bit harder. Would that be a true position to hold?
Yes,
I'm
it
gonna.
becomes
Oh,
harder,
okay.
but it doesn't mean it's insurmountable. And that's why they pay you the big buck, to handle these difficult decisions. That's why you're trained, that's why you're skilled. And I'm sure Kenroy has additional points to make here, but I would say nothing, this work isn't necessarily easy, but that's why we are highly skilled in it, to make it look easy. But we put in the work to ensure that we build the relationships and we build the skills to implement it.
Kenroy?
And I would want to add, interestingly, a kind of a different perspective. Sometimes in smaller organizations, communication is even more challenging, because if you have very few persons that are communicating, if one person is struggling in the area of communication, it means it's going to affect the others a lot more, a lot more. So what you find, as Sonia is saying, people are trained in these areas. It is our task to make sure that people are trained. It is our task as leaders to make sure that persons are given the tools that are necessary. Really and truly, leaders are behind their, and in an environment that they want to see. The sad part, unfortunately, is sometimes they get exactly what they want, but not necessarily what the organization may want.
Yes, yes. Folks, we got to leave it right there. As always, I just feel as if time is always against us when we talk HR with HRMAB. I don't get it, but nonetheless, another exciting and interesting one. So if you're watching today and you're in HR and you're thinking, I want to make the change, part of that change is also contacting HRMAB. HRMAB.org.bb is the website. I like to say membership comes with benefits. If you're not yet a member, sign up today. And these folks who are already a part of HRMAB are happy to work alongside you to see the change that you want to see in your community, that is the place where you work as well. So I want to encourage all of you today to give great consideration to joining HRMAB and to reaching out to have the help that's available to you. It doesn't start hard, but it starts with you, and it can start today with HRMAB as well. Thank you so much, Sonia Gartside, and good morning to you again, Kenroy Burke. Want to wish you both the very best. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
You're
us.
welcome. You're very welcome indeed.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning.